Always feels so official, that voice, doesn't it? Yeah, as people slowly enter in, mate, you'll it's a bit of a shame if you can't see the chat because we what we do is, by the way, too, welcome to Libby Reads with Ben Hobson. Um, what we do as we enter, uh, we always type in where we're from and say hi because one of the favorite things is to just see from all across Australia all the different places people have been reading your book, Toby. So we'll just wait for everyone to come in and type into the chat where they're from.
All cool.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, you've just been in Brisbane, man. Like, what have you been up to in Brizzy?
I've, I'm doing a play at the moment, fabulous play by Yasmin Reza called Art. It's now 30 years old, but it's never really off the stages. It currently has it's on in New York. Yeah, and we did a 4 week season here in Sydney and then just finished 2 weeks in Brisbane. Then we're off to Melbourne and then Adelaide. And I
Oh,
couldn't
wow.
be happier with it. Like it's going really well and it's super funny.
Yeah.
Like I haven't had been in a play. And the other two actors I'm in with it, Richard Roxburgh and Damon Herriman, we're all in agreement. Like we've never been in anything with such sort of waves of laughter. Oh, thanks, Anna. Um, yeah, it was
Oh,
just
so you can see, yeah, you can see
I
Anna,
know
yeah,
the
from
tech
Sydney. That's
the tech
great.
works.
So I'm just tweeting that's Damon Herriman. That's the guy from what's that great Aussie crime show?
I'm just
Mr.
in between, yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
man, what a show. And
yeah,
Justified, of course, right?
yeah, he's done heaps.
Oh, so you're okay, so you're on stage with those guys. Can I ask, like, as a creative person,
Mm.
does it, do you slowly sort of find what it is as you do it? Like, it's such an interesting creative place for me to think about because I've never been like an actor on stage.
Mm.
It must be so interesting to live in the role and have it be the same, but feel
Yeah.
different every night. It must feel different every time you're up
It's
there.
incredible and it's damn addictive. For various reasons, especially when it's a great play. But yeah, you've got your in this country a standard sort of 5 weeks rehearsal,
Yeah.
4 weeks, and then sort of a tech week, and then you're off to the races. Now, your season for your play may only go for a couple of weeks. We're fortunate in this one that it goes for a few months, so you continually tinkering with it, right up to closing night. And it's sort of exactly the same and completely different every night. That's kind of the job, which is sort of exhilarating. Well, it's certainly not about the money, you know what I mean? But that's the amazing thing about a live performance. Like the Stones aren't doing it for the money. They're not. They're not touring for the money, you'd suspect. But for that live kind of, we know what the audience wants. We can't alter it too much, but how do we make it new for ourselves?
Yeah, and it must be really interesting to you as well, having because I used to be in a band, like as a musician. Like I still remember that immediacy of you would see people's reaction to the thing that you were. It was so immediate. It was like a click, right?
Yeah,
Whereas this, like you've been writing this since for years,
yeah.
and so a joke or a line that you came up with ages ago, you don't even get to see its impact. It
It's
must feel very
very,
different to you.
it's very odd. It really is. It could be, sort of random people that I haven't that I don't know on the street can say, I saw you in art, the play I'm doing, or on some telly years ago. But it's a completely different thing where they go, hey man, I read your book. Instantly I have more questions because I'm such a novice at the experience. I'm like, oh, which bit do you like? Or did you guess the killer? Or did you really like it? I don't think my mum's even finished it. Did you, I'm just sort of like, I'm a simpering idiot. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good, man. All right, so just welcome everybody as everybody's now in.
Right.
Welcome. I can see people from Melbourne and Ian. Ian's from England, and he comes to every single one of these. Toby, he's our resident. He's the guy.
That's a
Everyone he knows more about the club than I do, really.
hello, Ian.
Yeah. Kathy and Fiona. Hello, Sydney. There's a few for Sydney people here today, which is pretty cool. Oh, Narracourt. I say that every time, don't I, Jody? Narracourt. I toured Narracourt in my band. We played to four people there. It was great. Um, but let me introduce, without further ado, let me introduce our guests this evening. We've got Toby Schmitz here, writer, director, and actor. He was most recently seen on television in Boy Swallows Universe and on stage in Gaslight. And yes, as Ian is referencing there, he's also on Black Sails, which he got a lot of acclaim for. He's received nominations for performances in The Seagull, Much Ado About Nothing, Measure for Measure, Reuben Guthrie, and The Great. His television credits include The 12 and The Black Sails. And he's also a celebrated playwright and was awarded the Patrick White Award for his play Lucky. And then this is his first novel. So we're very grateful to have you here. Can we, wherever you're from, guys, can we just clap really loudly, please? Unless you're on
Lovely,
like a crowded train or something.
lovely to be here, Ben. Very much so.
Yeah, man, we're stoked to have you here. Um, in the Artful Dodger. Oh,
Yes.
sorry, I haven't twigged on that one, man. I'm sorry. I actually
It's
watched
only
the
just
first.
it's only just come out. I had a ball on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
really cool. Got to sort of work with one of my heroes, David Thewlis. I mean,
Oh, he's
it's a
amazing, hey.
pretty fun show. The Cozies, then it was just the right level of comic camp. And I also got to do scenes with my old chum Tim Minchin as well.
Tim Minchin, he's on the cover as well. Did you? Sorry, you in season two of that?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I got to watch season two then. That's another reason to fire it up, hey? Because I love the first season, so that's really cool. Um, really happy to have you. Just a couple of things about what we do here. This is really a place for us to connect with Toby. A point of difference with our club, Toby, is that we sort of expect everyone has read the book. So
gotcha.
you know how when you're normally talking about the book, you try to keep things mastered in shadow. Like we can get into whatever you want today.
Yeah,
So
cool. I gotcha.
yeah. So we really encourage you guys in the group here, the attendees, to send through some questions for Toby. And what we like to do is reward the best question of the evening. So I'll be reading your questions out for Toby as well. So if you've got a great question, type it in there. Whoever gets the best question, so Toby will get to decide at the end of the evening, we will give a copy of the book, a physical copy. Yeah, it's a pretty awesome cover too, by the way.
Yeah, wasn't it fun? I
Yeah,
thought I was
pretty
going to have
awesome.
to back and forth a bit about. There was a lot of back and forth about the title. Like it was really torturous to have to decide on the title, and I was
Really, I love
horrified.
the title.
Thank you. So I thought the same conversation would happen with the cover. I had some sort of ideas about a slightly pulp fiction-y kind of, sort of like
It does
I
feel
was
like that.
I grew up in my parents' bookstores, and the first books I remember, the sort of paperback of the early Stephen Kings and like Peter Ben
Mm.
Shaw's and those kind of ones. And they so the publishing house sent that image. It was the first one they sent, and I just went, I love it. And they didn't change a thing. Actually, I had an extra smokestack because the ship in the features in my book has three. But other than that, I
Yeah,
was
one
so
note. Yeah.
delighted. So delighted that the first cover image they sent, I was like, that's exactly what I had in my head.
Yeah, you were prepared to sort of go back and forth, but they just nailed it.
That really happens.
That's great. It does really happen.
Mm.
So I'm a high school teacher and I was reading this at school, like while, kids were doing an exam or something. And they were like, "Oh, sir, that looks a bit gruesome." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I didn't realize all the blood streaks in
Yes.
the water. It's pretty cool.
And I suppose one of the points of the book is that it gets increasingly gruesome, and that maybe one of the magic tricks I wanted to achieve in it is that it
Yeah,
starts in a certain kind of
you
cuddly,
did.
cuddly genre, and then moves through a few genres, maybe ending up in some sort of Jacobean bloodbath. But
Yeah, it was. It reminded me. Do you remember a movie called Red Eye? Do you remember that movie
oh yeah,
with Wes Craven? And so it was
yes,
with Cillian Murphy, who's really found himself now. But like, remember the marketing for that was like it was a sweet romantic comedy, and there was a meet cute on the plane, and they
yes,
tricked you into the movie, and then he turns into this horrible assassin.
yeah,
Yeah, you kind of pulled the same trick.
yes, indeed.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to say to you, I don't know if you'll take this as a compliment or not. My wife reads a lot of books on Libby, but her particular favorite sort is like a cozy mystery or like a romantic
Yeah.
period drama sort of thing. And she saw this cover and she's like, "Oh, it sounds all right. The Empress, that's very classy." Totally swindled her, man. So she got into it. She ended up not being able to actually
Oh,
finish the book
she's
because
she's not she's not alone. And look, interestingly, like when you this is all sort of new process for me, being my first novel.
sure.
But said, how do we're going to market it as a mystery, and I'm like, yeah. And then kind of like it's a razor sharp who done it. I was like, you find out who did it halfway through.
Yeah.
But I suppose these days, especially with the first novel, they got to flog it somehow. So it was an eye opener to me. I was reticent to go out and spruik it as a cozy mystery because that was always the kind of the Mickey Finn of it. But yeah,
Yeah, but I love that. I love that you sort of have played with the genre, really, right? You've eased us in, and
yeah.
then it is a slow twisting of the
Yeah.
screw in, and then at the end, I mean, holy,
Absolutely. I think that was what I really wanted to play with. I wanted it to be that trick. Let's not forget that it originally started its life as a play, and one of the
I read that, yeah.
one of the many reasons that I wanted to create the story, and it took me ages to come up with a story. Always reticent to just. I once had a writing teacher who said a good story has to be one or two more good ideas. One idea, good ideas, no story. You get me? So I was waiting till my box was full of ideas before I started. But one of the ideas that I had in there went back when it was theatre. I was like, why are there no scary plays anymore? Like there was a time during the Victorian period when that's all there was. It was Sweeney Todd, there was,
Yeah.
ghosts and that kind of stuff. And theatres are great places to scare people. And so I was trying to write a scary play. And one of the ideas I had was like, what if it starts a bit more Agatha Christie, a bit more arsenic and old lace, and by the end, so we can actually have the audience jumping out of their seats. So that
Yeah,
was one
that's
idea.
cool.
The genre mash was always kind of baked in. In my head, it went cozy mystery into thriller, into horror,
Mm,
into all out sort of tragedy, into maybe ghost story as a epilogue. Yeah,
mm. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with that. It
yeah, I'm
I'm
aware.
really because I did read that you'd started it as a play. And sorry, I know everyone's sorry, I'm hogging him. I know I'm sorry. I'll get to questions in just a second. But I know it started as a play. I was really curious about the role of the voice of the actual ship, the Empress of Australia. Like how did you achieve that in live action? Was that a conceit of yours during when it was a play as well?
That's a great question. I can see someone else asked that as well.
Oh,
It
did
was
they? Sorry.
no, it wasn't a conceit when it was a play. And there's large
Interesting.
differences between the novel and the play. Not really so much the plot, but there's a lot filled in. There's a lot juggled around, and I needed a way to be able to sort of I needed a way to be able to just go between characters' heads and perspective, and also between the classes of the ship and jump wherever I wanted, which you don't necessarily need a narrator for. I get that. But it allowed me a little more license, I thought, to kind of have omnipresent, omniscient
Mm,
ability to jump into anyone's head. But also, I thought this is rather late in the piece, but I thought a female ghostly no, mainly a female voice
mm,
holding on to us, maybe even a slightly sinister one.
mm.
The sort of the ghost of every ship that's a floating object that's ever been was maybe a fun idea. Yeah.
It is a cool idea. And I was actually wondering too about because you're not just the ship itself, but the almost the idea of flotation device, almost.
Mm.
Yeah. So
And, and yeah, no, I find the ocean a scary place myself. Anyway, I've never been much of a beach bum. And then we spend millions of years clawing our way out of there and growing opposable thumbs. I'm always a little dubious about people who go, let's get in a submarine and go see the Titanic. I'm like, yeah.
no, well, speaking of Titanic, I've got a question here from Tom Prendergast. Thank you for your question. I felt that this was a cross between, I think these are pretty great references. Knives Out,
Yep.
Titanic,
Yep.
and Final Destination.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's a good
What
one. That's good, Tom. Yeah.
what sources were you most inspired by when you were writing this book? That's his question there.
Yeah. Um, they sort of come from two camps. One of them is sort of historical. My father taught 20th century history. I've always wanted to somehow be able to talk about the horrors of the Second World War, Holocaust.
Mm,
I mean, essentially the Holocaust and everything around it, without having to set it there. I had a great university professor who was like, if you want to talk, if you want to write about the Holocaust in a new way, read more. Um, and so I had an idea about maybe talking about the Weimar period, the lead up to that interwar period where everyone was like, well, we're definitely not going to have another war, but let's listen to
mhm.
jazz and take a lot of cocaine and then
Yeah.
just a few years later and doing it all again and even worse. I was somewhat mystified and intrigued by that. So a lot of the literature and just my interest in that period. Plus, you get sort of sexy flappers and jazz and gangsters and prohibition and all that stuff thrown into the mix.
All those cool
Um,
things.
yeah, and then on a literary level, I'm a big P.G. Wodehouse fan, and this the sort of the Jeeves Wooster kind of banter, which I
Mm.
imagine that sort of I could have my top characters playing around with up in the first class lounge really interested me. And then in the sort of the thriller aspect, I mean, I read a lot of Agatha Christie's as a kid. I sort of churned through them, but they were never really pushed my buttons. I think I just sort of did it because they were lying around the family store. But I really did get into the sort of the slightly pulpy thrillers. Your Silence of the Lambs and the previous before that, what it was called, Black Sunday from
Mm.
Harris, Harris
Tom Harris, yeah.
and early Stephen King, the sort of the slightly more hard boiled King and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was kind of really definitely going, "Oh, what would I want to read?" My second novel, I'm going for a little bit more of like, what would everybody absolutely love to read? But my first one, especially remember because it started its life as a play, I was like, going, what? This was the thing I personally would want to read. And also, COVID came, and I was like, if I can't write a novel during this, I'm never gonna. And so I turned to my back catalogue of plays, which already had plots ready to go, rather than having to conjure up a new one myself.
One,
And
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
seemed to jump out the most because back when it was a play, a lot of my mates said, "Mate, this should probably been a novel. This is a bit hard to pull off on stage." Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was gonna. That's it. Just yeah, I can't imagine the ending on stage. Like that must have shaped and shifted a fair bit, right? Like, or were you planning to try to pull it all off?
We tried to pull it off to a modicum of success, but you've seen how the Star Trek acting when the ships rock. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, of
you
course.
jiggle the camera.
I wanted to ask this too because I write books myself, but I don't have any experience as an actor, but I often feel like when I'm writing, it is like an act of improvisation, or what I imagine it would be like. You sort of inhabit each character and you try your best to authentically respond in a way that would be true to who they are.
Yeah.
And I was really wondering about that for this, whether or not you felt like your writing was close to improv, because the voice in this book is so rich and the banter is so rich. Like, do you see it that way, or how do you see the creative process of making a
And I,
novel?
I absolutely see it that way. I think you come up with the characters. I mean, I've written quite a few plays in my first book, but I've written, fiction before in other formats. But yeah, it's character, very much character based for me. I need to know who they are, and then I need to give them a beginning and a middle and an end. I'm not clever enough that I can just get a whole lot of fun characters, give them an inciting incident, and watch them spin off.
Hmm.
I always set off with a beginning, a middle, and an end idea, even if it's just an image or a sentence. Now, along the way, any of them may change and often do. The middles, I change it for something else. I utterly change the ending, but I need to set off somewhere. But the first thing I do is find some fun characters that I would like to hear their voices, and I inhabit them at least on some level, even if it's just walking to the train station.
Yeah,
I,
really. So you embody them as well.
yeah, at least up here, how would Tony walk, or what would Nicole think about?
Yeah, right.
Junkie that's harassing the person on the street or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
fun exercise. Yeah,
Yeah, well, see, yeah, because with anything creative too, there's so many different approaches. But I don't know how many writers say that it is like so it's almost like an intuitive thing. It's almost like following or letting yourself embody someone else so empathically, right, that you can sort of get into their skin. Like I imagine you sound like a really interesting, like a bit of both worlds though, because then you do have your structure, right? You do have it's
yeah,
almost like the structure's there, but then you sort of play in the structure.
that's right. I mean, I've been an actor since I was a kid, and I've been a writer since I was a kid because I was always writing material to perform. The house play at school. I started in stand up, written
Mm.
screenplays and so on. So the discipline of how to actually churn out pages and do a vomit draft and then rewrite and stuff have been with me for a while. But the other part of me is far, I consider far more fun. It's the actor part where I kind of let loose and pull funny faces and lose myself. I call acting hiding in the light. So you can sort of abandon yourself and don't have to worry about the bills and school pickup and
And then
you
you,
know what I mean, and put on a costume that's
sure.
extremely fun for me.
We had a comment here from Kate. I've never taken so long to read a book as every single sentence is a work of art, which is a very kind thing to say. Like it is,
Yeah.
but how long do you, because I imagine there's so many passes that you do on it to bump up the language and to work on every line, right? Like how many edits, how many passes, like how much do you labor over getting each of those words correct? You know what I mean?
It's hard to remember because once again it started its life as a play. So there was, I like to call it, 3 or 4 drafts of that. Then there was everything I learned from a whole lot of great actors coming on and playing those parts. Some of them were friends.
Oh, see, this is so interesting. Yeah. Tell
Yeah,
us about that.
well, they refined the lines, or they were so funny at one thing that I went, well, if you can do that, well, scrub that line, do that. And, by the time it became a novel, I'd wholesale stolen from those actors, and I thank them at the end of the book for it. But, some of the characters are utterly shaped by the personalities and the verbal characteristics of the actors who played them. And then with this, look, how many passes did I do? I suppose it's interesting for people who are writing, isn't it? I wrote a big vomity one during COVID, and then did another pass on it. Then sent it to my literary agent. They said we want to send it to Alan Unwin. Alan and Unwin came back and said, look, it's not for us for a couple of reasons, which they said, and then. But good luck with it. Well,
Hmm,
I spent about 2 weeks licking my wounds, and then did another pass, which took me sort of 6 months. This is amongst having a life and acting work and so on.
of
Um,
course.
and then I sent it back to Alan and Unwin, and they said, "Oh, you don't understand. That was actually a rejection slip. That wasn't an encouragement to write another draft." However, on the basis of the work you have done on a rejection slip, we'd like to
Oh, wow.
take it
See,
on. And they also said in the same breath, there is still a long way to go. And I think then it was about maybe 2 or 3 years between that and its release in May last year, which I don't.
wow. And so what was that like though then? What did they want to shape with you? Or, I feel like a lot of the time the editing process through publishers is really about enhancing the good parts more than
Yes.
getting rid of things that don't work.
It was, I suppose, the main gist, apart from hundreds of tiny things, wonderful research things that I'd slipped up on or whatever. Um, the main thing was they wanted to get more crime in it, but it wasn't such uh, it wasn't so heavily weighted to a study of certain people and
Mm.
empire types and their interplay and the sort of the journey I wanted to take people on really was, please someone bump off these racist toffs
Hmm.
and then at some point go, okay, that's enough now, it's getting a bit intense, and then to the level of, okay, I'm scared for myself now. That was really doing it. So that they liked all of that. They were
Yeah.
just, I want to know more about Archie Daniels, the detective. I want to sense him getting closer to the killer. Just good old fashioned crime stuff that I was a little naive about. And also in the play, that stuff sort of happened in the wings because no one wants to just watch the cop interviewing people on stage for 3 hours. Whereas a book, you
Yeah.
take as long as you want. So that was the real grind, was going back, reading more crime, working out where to put, how far to go into Archie Daniels's head, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and give him like flesh out his character so there was
Right.
a degree of sympathy there from the audience as well, I imagine, right?
Yeah. And of course,
Yeah.
on stage, unless you Shakespeare and a genius, no one really wants to hear about backstory. You're battling with people's bladders. No one wants, but with a book, of course, you say as long as you want.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting the differences between because they're both storytelling mediums,
Mm.
but you're right, there is like the immediacy of it changes it. This is more of like you can spend time in the world of it, right?
That's right. And I fully intended. for it to be this dense. And I can't apologize for it, but I absolutely understand some people who've said, like, it's just too much, especially when I thought it was going to be a little more lightweight. But the idea of someone going back and rereading passages and lines thrills me because that's the kind of book I wanted to write. It
Yeah, cool.
shan't be with the next one, but I dig that. I dig, and though I'm not putting myself anywhere in his category, I love a Martin Amis, where I go, excuse me? Or his mate Christopher Hitchens not writing fiction, or Clive James, whatever, where I go, I'm starting that paragraph again, man. Like,
Yeah, well, that's really interesting too. Like your delight in the play of words and the way words roll off the tongue,
yeah,
I think speaks to acting, right? But then capturing that in a novel,
yeah. I'm
yeah,
doing, I'm just about to embark on an extremely fun project, which I don't think is blowing it, but maybe it is. Anyway, I'm not going to say that novel, but it's a big Australian classic, blue chip classic, and I'm working on doing the audiobook for it. I'm thrilled.
Oh, that's
And
coll.
and it's exactly that. I'm getting to the end of the paragraph and going, I need to really know how I start this paragraph when I'm saying it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I can't just meander through it and at the end go, oh, that's what he meant. I have to
yeah.
know at the beginning of the paragraph. Yeah.
Ah, that's cool. I love that. I love language that way, and especially the way it captures voice so well. We've got a question here from Lynette Williams.
Yeah.
Her question is, why so many characters?
Mm.
When you first introduce them all, it reads like like a film script. I don't know whether she wrote this question before we started talking about the play. Um, and then all the overlapping, that first scene where you have all the characters, well, not all of them, but a lot of the characters having this scene together.
Yeah.
Was that part of it too? Like, because you can picture that up on stage and you can actually see all the different characters. Yeah.
Well, I have the ship apologise not once but twice in the opening section and assure you that remembering everyone's not important. Ship says you rarely meet this many people on terra firma, but it happens time on ocean liners. And I've been in at events or hotels, fortunately not an ocean liner, but very similar circumstances where it feels exactly like that. You're like, why so many people? And it's part of the horror. I mean, I think being on an ocean liner actually is one of my nightmares for precisely that reason. This is supposed to be fun. Why are there so many people with name tags that I keep forgetting? So I genuinely wanted that level of anxiety in there. And I went so far as to have the ship say that. And then at the end of that big set piece with all those people coming in saying, that ain't even the start of it. There's more coming. But I remind you, don't worry. The important ones will emerge. You have
Yeah.
to trust me. I've got you.
That's really interesting. So that scene was really almost an effort in building the claustrophobia almost of being
Absolutely.
on a ship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because yeah, I can see that. I can see getting on because I've never been on a cruise ship or a cruise line or anything, but I can see going in there and just being overwhelmed like you're in, Disneyland or something like that. Why
Yeah,
there's so many people?
that's right. And why are they all so drunk all the time?
Yeah, and what are these things they're saying? Like,
Yeah, that's
I
right.
can I can totally see where you got
Of
that.
course, of course, maybe on a more obvious level, it was a reason, especially once I found the metaphor of a ship that was actually in the 1920s called the Empress of Australia. And I wanted to essentially to try and write an Australian story that wasn't set in the outback with a whole lot of monosyllabic men where something horrible had happened in the past and the ghosts of the past and, some cop rolls into town. I just wanted to try and do something other than that. But one of the things I wanted to do was have all these representatives of empire
Mm.
from all classes and and see how they're all somehow either perpetrators or victims. And so an ocean liner is great for that, especially in the 1920s. The British, arguably the high watermark of the British Empire, with
Mm.
all different kinds of racism, different kinds of class, and the emerging middle class, and all of that kind of stuff, which just felt like a neat metaphor. But yeah, unapologetic amount of characters. It also gave me more people to kill.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When I was a kid, I was writing a zombie movie and I was writing a script, and I didn't know how script writing worked. So I got halfway through and I realized I'd killed all my
Yeah.
characters. So I just had them go to a new house and I just here's some more more zombie food.
Yeah.
Uh, Anne Beato has asked this question. Was there a character or scene that you found particularly challenging? And I'd add to that too, like, how did you crack that scene? Like, if there was a challenging scene, what did you do creatively to sort of get that on the page?
I think one of my main challenges, character wise, and it was more of a challenge in the book than in the play, was the killer. And I can only assume people have read the book, so
Yeah.
we're in no spoiler territories. But working out what Frey does was hard. I mean, I'm slightly squeamish, but one of the big notes was like, I think we need to be in the room with him a couple of more times, and I think you need to describe the horrible things he does. And I
Wow,
think
really?
increasingly horrible. I'd sort of fudged it or dodged it or put it a bit off stage.
Yeah,
I mean,
understandable.
set pieces like Dick with his intestines, they were in the play and all that, but I had to go further, and I found it unpleasant. And as to what makes him tick, I'd always look. No, I'm not alone in this. It happens more often than you think. But I grew up under the shadow of quite a terrifying serial killer, working in the suburb um, where I grew up in Perth. And it was only recent, caught a few years ago, Claremont serial killer. And it absolutely affected my childhood. I knew
Wow.
people directly affected by it. It was totally affecting. And I wanted to try and do that justice rather than have a plot device serial killer.
Hmm.
I wanted him to be somehow also, much like the ship is the summary of everything that's ever floated, I wanted him to be the most horrible and somewhat still unknowable. The thing I find about real life serial killers is that when you find out eventually what makes them tick, it's always a bit anticlimactic. For so much horror that they spread, it's a whatever, it was sexual perversion, or mum didn't like them, or they were always a sociopath. It
Yeah.
was scrawling like, oh, that's always a tawdry kind of a banal
Yeah.
person in the dock by the end. So I wanted to make him increasingly unknowable and yet still go, yep, all the clues are there. He grew up, slaughtering sheep. His mum's cruel to him. He experiences the horrors of the First World War. There's all this kind of stuff there to that sort of you could go, hopefully, oh, of course it was him. But that was a real tough nut to crack, the psychology of him, because I really eventually had to I avoided certain passages, and then over a week, I got through a bottle of scotch and made my brain go to some not very nice places.
Yeah, geez. Well, talking about the horrors too, because I actually think it's pretty interesting how visceral my reaction was to how the evil that he perpetrated onto people, right? But Robin has a really interesting question about the idea of World War One and the horror of that. And it felt like you were almost emotionally wrestling through the character with that violence by having it. You know what I mean? Like it was almost like a cathartic thing. But I was just, yeah, Robin's question is, how did you emotionally cope with all those horrors of World War One and just, I guess, the idea of war in general, right, in this character?
Yeah. I've always been a student of it. I studied military, in 20th century history at uni, and I've always read about it. I work in and live above my parents' bookstore still, so I have access to every new book that comes out about bloody trench warfare. I just finished one that's purely just comparing the different types of mud from the fields of Flanders
Wow.
to the other ones. I mean, I've gone real nerd on it. So I'm a student of that. And I think part of being a student of that, and I'm not alone here with, look how much military history they sell, is that one is always trying to work out why the hell that happened. How, maybe in order so it doesn't happen again. I've also just got like a boy nightmare of just having to end up doing it one day. What would you do in war? What did you do during the war, Daddy?
Yeah.
And I just think I'm just of the generation where I was seeing the last of the World War II participants dying. And my grandparents were heavy in legacy. So I spent a lot of time around, you know, people who'd walked done the Burma Railway or been RAF pilots or managed shot down over Germany and escaped, or just the drudgery of having to survive those campaigns. So it's always been in my head. And the Holocaust doesn't really speaks for itself. I think if you're a certain age and you see those photos or you see that
Yeah.
footage, you go, well, that's never leaving me. So it is about reconciling the horrors of war, and I wanted the horrible things happening on the ship to sort of to be mirrored in the passages that talk about the try to understand just the insanity of the life during the First World War on the front. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you talked about almost how like no matter what the answer is not you don't have enough. Like there's no answer, right?
Yeah.
and to horror and the evil of it, it's
Yeah.
no matter what you say, there's nothing that can sort of bring you to a place of going, oh, I understand now. It's just profoundly non-understandable, right?
Yes. Well, I just think the most I think plummeting feeling for me is that it's very easy to say empires suck. The British Empire or whatever, the latest tech bro empire that he's built. But it's kind of like it's all humans do.
Mm.
And even maybe you could go so far as to say every species kind of, the animal kingdom, like what's that? But or an ant colony. And to the very end of the book, in the penultimate chapter, when we've gone down to a sort of crustaceous level at the bottom of the ocean, sort of type,
Mm.
it's still crabs eating microorganisms and coral eating crabs. I mean, I suppose it's a sort of a nihilistic plummet into horror in a way, but also, yeah, I mean, men start wars. Men should probably die in them. I don't know.
Yeah, you're quite a philosophic guy, and it's funny too because you can see that underneath the book, but it is also just really schlocky and
Yeah, I'm wrong.
almost yeah, yeah, it's grotesque, It's like
Yeah.
a yeah, it's
Yeah,
funny.
well, I'm not sure if I would be interested in reading a book about 90% of what I just talked about, unless there was a sort of sexy train wreck, coked up flapper, and a South African playboy who I wanted to die, and a sort of a grisly Chicago
Yeah.
mobster. That makes that kind of that talking about those kind of big ideas that are in the engine room of the book far more unpalatable to me.
Yeah. It's funny, like I read a lot of books. Like I read a lot of books for interviews and things that I do. Um, but yeah, it's this is particularly, I feel, one of those books that only you could have written.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe that might be the case for many people's first novel, that it's kind of the culmination of everything, and you get it out, and you're like, oh,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about that.
Yeah.
Um, Chantal Isaacs asked you this question.
Yeah.
Now knowing it used to be a script for a play, I'd actually love to see it on stage. Would you reconsider doing that? And then who would you want to actually cast in some of the roles? If you ever have a dream cast, you are in that world.
um, I'd absolutely love to have another cracker on stage. What it requires, Chantal, is a budget. You know, um, because you can't have everyone just doubling up characters. You want everyone to play everyone. And so to me, sort of, if I win Powerball, I might be staged again. And now that I'm not trying to get it up in a Sydney independent theatre scene, I could probably cast anyone I want. If it's a dream casting, so I suppose, internationally cast people who really are from the places I say they are. Goodness gracious, I'd probably cast myself.
Of course, you would have to.
Maybe my big thing would just be hire a really good director. And I get some Sam Mendes or someone in
Oh,
some great theatre director.
yeah. Geez, Sam Mendes, that'd be a get.
Yeah.
Um, sorry, I'm just reading here that Anna's has asked a question about the audiobook. Did you ever, I mean, I know it's the Empress Murders and it's a feminine sort of voiceover thing. Did you ever consider narrating parts of it yourself? Or, and
You
then,
know, you
yeah,
know
so
what?
go
The
ahead.
only thing that stopped me from doing that, and it was really interesting. I sort of assumed I'd be allowed to.
Yeah, well, you'd think.
Actor. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're like, you're going to have to audition. I was like, scusa? But then I realized, and really the one thing that stopped me doing it was that huge slab of French at the end. I wanted, as a final torture for anyone who can't read French, to have to get to that page and go, mother. You know what I mean? And I don't speak fluent French, even schoolboy French. So that was a bit of a hurdle I hadn't thought about. But
Mm,
I thought it'd be and I wasn't willing to give up that page. They kept offering. Alan Lemon said, "You sure you don't want that whole letter translated?" And I said, well, if people really want to read it, they can either I learn French or B, get Google Translate out. You know what I mean? But
for sure, for sure.
I liked feeling ostracized, and I liked feeling other at that point in a play that's a book, sorry, that's about racism on a huge level. That the English reader suddenly, right on the buzzer, at a very tense moment, goes, "Oh, right." So, what am I, chopped liver? Well, yeah, you are about to be. Um, I liked that. So it was a genuine hurdle for me doing the audiobook. Because, I'd love to do dirty South African accents, and I'd quite happy to do Nicole speaking like that, like it's one of those girls. Like I like voices, but playing a sort of an older French ancien regime woman, I was like, that ain't happening. Yeah, but
That's funny. You wrote yourself out of
yeah.
performing it.
But Jennifer Valedic, who did the audio book, is a fabulous actress in her own right. I thought she
Mm.
did a fab job. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, you guys in the chat, if anyone else listened to the audiobook and you rated it as well, you'd love to hear your comments on that as well. Um, we had a question from Rebecca Jane. Now, this was actually, and in fact, you know what? Now's a good opportunity if I've figured out how to work my computer. I did. I just put the Facebook link into the chat there. So if anyone's a member of the Facebook group, this is where we sort of gather and send in questions and comments and talk about books all the time and what we're reading and all those sorts of things. But this came from the Facebook group. So this was from Rebecca Jane.
Yep.
She had a particular question about the ending.
Yep.
Was that always, and it sounds like it has been, was that always the grand finale? Big, gruesome, dramatic, huge, it's a big spectacle sort of ending. Or did it kind of evolve as you wrote the play?
No, no.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. But I was just saying at the beginning, so some may have missed it, but I can't write any story without knowing a beginning and a middle and an end, even
Yeah.
if it's a sentence or an image. And sometimes they jettison for others, but that's how I start on a journey. And really, the ending I always had was everyone's going to die, and I want there to be hope right up to the last moment. And in fact, the publisher was like, "You sure you don't want to save one of them? Maybe the First Nations, the digger, and I was like, no, they're all going to die." And then during the writing of the play, of course, it didn't turn into that wasn't the final ending. I had one last shiver of a ghost story set exactly 20 years later in a lighthouse, and there's been the whole Second World War's happened, and suddenly there's a ghost telegram from the long sunk Empress of Australia. I mean, I always get a shiver, and I always did as a kid. The notion of a ghost ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coming across the Marie Celeste with no one on board, or I'm sure I saw an 18th century whaler in the fog that sunk years ago. I mean, come on. That's great, boys' own stuff. Yeah. So the ending was always in my head that everyone had to die, and I spent
Yeah.
a lot of time working out how gruesomely to do it. I suspected the ship was going to sink, so because that's why I made sure that Frey knew about explosives and I'd done a lot of research for another project on the sappers, the miners of the Western Front, especially Australian ones, at Passchendaele, Hill 61, all of that. So I did, a lot of very
Sure.
unfun research about World War One explosives. So I knew I was probably going to blow the ship up. And then the ghost story extra sort of ending came along like a tail wagging after a dog. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's just an interesting place to go from how long were you working on the play?
Mm,
It's sort of, I love to chart it. Like you had the
mm,
idea
mm.
and you did the play and you worked on it there.
I
And then
suppose
you,
I suppose I threw the filled the box up for the idea for the play,
yeah,
and then wrote it. I suppose I spent a year filling up the box,
yep,
and then I spent 6 months writing the play because then I
yeah.
had a deadline from memory. It's like maybe should have spent longer,
Hmm.
and then whatever 10 years pass, whatever how long it is to COVID. Then from pulling out the old play and starting again with palm cards and a bull clip and you know, a, I even went to IKEA and got a crappy pin-up board and wrote myself a schedule this many pages a day. The most organised I've ever been before or since in my life. From that to the print to the thing coming out in May. So that's kind of nearly 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. It's sort of like Hemingway did that thing where he would write standing up and write by pen, and then he would slowly work it into a typewriter and he'd sort of edit as he goes, right? You're sort of doing that, right? In all the different iterations.
I'm a big fan of not opening that laptop to the last moment.
Really?
Yeah, so if that means it's on receipts or moleskins or
Yeah.
even if I go type up palm cards with handwritten that I can shuffle around, scene two can now become scene four. And even if I do write up something, I press print quick smart. get that laptop in the back in the corner and get the pen out. I think it's just how,
Really?
maybe it's because I'm an actor and I've always had scripts sticking out my back pocket. But I'm just a fundamental believer that that screen is just not as creative for me. One, you've got your emails pinging away on it, and
Yeah.
secondly, when you've got a script, I know a lot of actors now who just have their iPad on set or on in rehearsal rooms. I'm like, really? Because you can stick it in your back pocket, and it looks kind of sexy sticking out there. Oh, are you an actor? But also when you're going through it to find the scene, or even if it's your manuscript for your novel, you're going through other pages, and you're even subconsciously taking that in. Oh,
Mm.
that's right. I must get back to that bit that I keep skipping. Or why have I underlined that? Oh, that's right. On your way to it. And I think when you're just clicking and scrolling, you're not getting that you're not getting that extra information. It's the same reason why I insist my daughter goes and looks the word up in the dictionary. Of course, she can type it into my phone. It'd come up instantly. But if on the way to looking up the word bellicose, you're
Mm.
also passing, whatever it is, beatific, you accumulated that info. Anyway, that's why I'm a hard copy guy.
That's really interesting. I don't actually think I've ever heard that philosophy before of physicalizing things. You have to make like do you do the handwriting thing? Like you're actually handwriting
Yeah,
it?
yeah. And not I'm not saying not even the lion's share, but a big wad of like, what's this? I'll show you. This is what my current
Yeah.
second novel looks like.
Let's have a look.
Yeah. So it looks like this. It's
Wow.
all sorts of scraps and things. And look, I'm a highly disorganized guy, but eventually that'll make it into an outline with, oh, look, I've written most of chapter 3, and chapter 4 is only 5 bullet points. But I really, the later I can open up the laptop, the better, because my laptop is a graveyard for things that I open the laptop up in too early.
So, man, I find it sounds like you're like an impressionist painter, like that Jackson Pollock style. You're just like crazy sort of throwing things out there, and it'll sort of you really believe in the process of the subconscious to find the thing in
I
the
do,
right?
especially if I've committed to a beginning and a middle and an end.
Yeah, and then you've
I
got
haven't
the
got that up here. I won't even start the palm card system.
yeah. And that's a really useful way to sort of frame things so it keeps some sort of order to everything you're doing, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And that's so sorry, that's the second novel. I actually wanted to talk about this. The second novel, the process that you learned from
Mm,
the Empress Murders.
mm.
So have you sort of got your novel writing process sort of refined now? Like, have you brought a lot of the stuff you learned from that to the new one?
Yes, I suppose it must be in a constant state of refinement, right? Otherwise, I hate to be going backwards or even sideways. But I mean, the first thing I learned was less characters. But
Interesting.
also it's not based on a play, so I've had to really flesh my plot out, beginning, middle, and end up here.
Mm.
And whenever I'd finish a draft of The Empress, I'd go down to my local printers and print it off. I got a sort of special deal there. And the last one I printed off, the guy said, the next book, maybe shorter, huh? I was like, yeah. So really, they're my guidelines at the moment. But I also wanted to find a new genre. Like I said, I love Martin Amos, and I find whether successful or not, and I think he's largely successful, he's always attempting something different with his,
Mm.
whether it's telling time a story backwards in Time's Arrow, or playing with the language itself in Night Train, where it's a sort of fabulous hard-boiled lesbian detective who the writing is as a hard-boiled detective would actually speak. Or he's always trying something new, and even if it's just a completely different genre. And I suppose maybe romantic comedy, if I had to try and put this, whatever this next genre mash is. I mean, Alan and Unwin or whoever's going to want to put it into some sort of category, aren't they? So,
Yeah.
Tom, yeah.
You seem like a hard guy to classify.
So,
That's cool. Um, I mean, this is maybe a stranger question, but I'm really interested in you, like as a young man.
mm,
How did you know that this was something that you wanted to do with your life? is to be part of this machine of telling stories, and you seem like you find such joy and passion in it as well. It's not just like you're collecting checks or find glory in the fame of it, but you love it so much.
Yeah. Keith just asked if I'm a Dadaist. The fabulous question. Probably, Keith. Barry Humphries, one of my heroes, Australian former and writer and polymath. He used to, when back
Mm.
in the days when you had occupation in your passport, it used to just say Dada. I think uh, event that one of the one of the, because it happened before I can remember, but I've grown up in my parents' bookshops. Elizabeth's bookshop. I mean, at the height of bookstore power, before sort of Amazon and Kindle,
Yeah.
there was like five of them in Perth and three here in Sydney, and now there's a couple in Fremantle and one here, which I still work in and live above. So the storytelling's always been there. My father directed a bit of theatre before I was born in the 70s in Perth. It's been around, the Shakespeares were on the shelf, and as was the Stoppard. And I've
Yeah.
taken to the theatre a lot as a kid. I mean, it's a freaking lucky way to grow up.
Yeah.
So if maybe that's the easiest identifiable spark, but that doesn't necessarily mean that someone wants to run away to the circus and tell stories for very little coin. But I've just always had the bug. I just always had the bug. After school, I did clowning school instead of doing after school sports. I go out to outside the freer markets and just do terrible clowning comic routines, and my parents would have no idea where I was. Uh, it's easy to go. That's a kind of a propensity for showing off. But I know plenty of actors, and I include myself, who are completely introverted, and it's more for me about hiding in the light. I get to forget who I am, and
Mm.
then there's a theory that I have that is I trot out all the time, but I believe it's so fundamentally. And this comes to performing and or writing poetry or novels or painting or whatever. There's many ways to tell a story, but I think that storytelling is so fundamentally what we're about. I think it came a lot. It's the thing that raises us above trout, and I think that the human species came up with storytelling really early on in the piece, like
Mm.
pre-verbal. I think it's what we learned how to do after mating and hunting and gathering. That that we had to tell each other, don't eat the poison berries, right? And someone would be better at doing that than the others. Like Uncle Greg would have a funnier way of doing the berry story, and boom, storytelling's invented. I think that's that
Yeah,
far.
it's a fundamental part of humanity.
Totally. I
Do
think it's
you,
right there at the beginning.
do you feel like as an Australian that the careers doing the arts, and even can I ask you, as an Australian man as well, like do you feel like a career in the arts is something that is, did you feel a lot of encouragement? Like it sounds like your parents were pretty awesome at encouraging you.
They tried their very best to steer me away, and I started a law degree. And
Right.
I wasn't allowed to really be a professional actor when I was at school, though there was the temptation and the slight chance I could have done so. Like you'll be finishing your education first, thanks, mate. And even when I got into drama school here in Sydney, the National Institute, I still didn't think it was a career. I was like, this can't be a career. And maybe that's how I was brought up in the time I was brought up in Perth, where there was not much. But I think it's a massive challenge to run away to the circus. And to any younger person, or even older person, who's like, I'm going to go and be a performer. And as much as like, I suppose I would same advice if like you were saying I want to be a writer. I was like, have a serious think about that.
Yeah.
So if you want to sign that dotted line, because once you're in, you really got to stay in and not be uh, suffer rejection. You've just got to kind of like push on through. So maybe it isn't quite a career. I still work in my parents' bookshop. Most actors I know wait tables or, supplement, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I write books and I do all these interviews, but I've got a full-time job. Like I can't, you write in the margins, don't you? You sort of,
Yeah. And I think if you accept that and never whinge about that, then that's a very good starting point because that's what most actors and writers, like 99% of them are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely right. We're getting to the point where we're actually finished with our time, Toby, I'm afraid, which has gone past really fast. If anyone's got any extra questions for Toby, now's the time. Um, but Toby, just a last question from me. Can you tell us anything else about this new book that you have?
Yeah.
And we'd love to have you back for it eventually as well. Have you got a title? Have you got a character?
Titles here or there, but it's about a guy who maybe is like me, maybe not, but he wins the Powerball.
Yeah,
He wins the big one,
yeah,
like 250 mil.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
And he's always had ideas about what he would do if he won the 250 mil, like has lists, like maybe as many of us
Hmm.
do rather. And he's not going to settle for, oh, I'm not just going to change or quit my job and maybe go around Australia. He's like, oh no, I've got big plans for that. And some of them are wild. And one of his very expensive ideas that he comes up with on the spot is he tries to woo the girl at the Oslot office who hands the check over, who he falls instantly in love with.
Okay, I like it. That's a good pitch. I like it a lot. That one I can really easily
I buy
see.
Powerball so much. Someone just said that.
I can see that one as a movie very easily, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, very easily. Um, so do you I'll give you a second, mate. I might introduce just what we're doing next, but if you could have a think, like, has there been any questions from, I don't know whether you can see the chat window
They go,
there.
they fly by a little fast for me. I'm so sorry. I did
It's
see
all right.
five come
Do
up,
you
but
have any off that you remember that you liked from this evening?
oh, no, I think, yeah, I thought, does Facebook question count? I
Yeah.
thought Rebecca Jane's question was fab.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. That's actually the first one we've had win from the Facebook group. I don't even know if Rebecca's here tonight, but that's really fun.
Thank you for all the questions, though, guys. It's a very cool and hip community here, and I'm very happy to now be aware of it.
Yeah, I think you've made a lot of new fans, mate. Like I've seen a few people here saying can't wait to read the next one.
Cool.
Loved reading this one, the audiobook they loved. So you got a lot of new fans, man. So yeah, very happy. Would love to have you back for that Powerball one.
Look forward to it, Ben. And thanks everyone, big time, man.
Yeah. And so Rebecca, is Rebecca here? Rebecca's not even here. Next month though, with Libby Reads with Ben Hobson, we're reading a book called A Great Act of Love by Heather Rose, which I'm really excited for. Um, I met Heather a long time ago. We had a couple of books coming out at the same time. We have the same agent, actually. And so I've known Heather a while, but I've never interviewed her. So it's going to be really special. But it's
Cool.
a historic novel. It's about Paris. People go to Tasmania. It's going to be excellent. So I really enjoy reading all across, man. And so I'm really grateful for this one because I
Right.
felt like, yeah, it's like a punk novel. You know what I
Thank
mean?
you.
Yeah,
Take that.
yeah. It's like, damn, I'm reading something here. You know what I mean? Like it sort of slapped you across the face,
Yeah.
which I loved. I love reading all these different books. So, Toby, man, thank you so much for making time for us in between all your different acting commitments and everything.
My pleasure.
Um, yeah, and really appreciate just your answers and everything tonight. And thank you, audience and everybody, for being here. Thank you for being part. But we'll see you next month on Libby Reads with Ben Hobson, and hopefully I'll run into you too soon, Toby. And see, do you have any? Actually, sorry, before we finish, tell
Mm.
us again, where are you acting next? What's the next thing to watch out
So
for?
we're taking our play Art, which just finished a bumper season in Sydney and in Brizzy. Some of the readers and viewers here have seen it. We've got a few weeks off here, but we're next up in Melbourne and then Adelaide.
Yeah, cool. So Melbourne, Adelaide, keep an eye out for Art, and Toby will be there. And
Come say hi.
don't. I was going to say bring your books and throw them at him, but don't do that. Just, just I don't know how to do do that differently. But anyway, thanks, man, and thanks everyone for tonight. And yeah, we'll see you next time, man.
Bye. Thanks, Kate.
Bye.